Hey, I'm Liv, and welcome back to Self-Taught Humanoid Person. This is episode 2, and today's topic is self-love. I've attempted to talk about this on stream, but I didn't completely feel comfortable, so I don't think I explained myself well, and I wanted to go more in depth about it. I wanted to talk about how self-love looks different than I thought. Oh my god, the cat's into shit. Yeah, cat's gonna cat. Ignore that. I want to talk about how self-love looks different than I thought and the steps that I took and continue to take to achieve loving myself in my day-to-day life. More crashing. That's fine. So, self-love. What is it? There's so much content out there about what it is, how to achieve it, how to project it to others, and a lot of it boils down to fake it till you make it. Based on that explanation, I guess I assumed that self love would just come one day if I kept living and learning as I could. I thought with enough outer love, enough responsibility, and enough focus on myself that one day it would be easy to say that I love myself, as easy as it was to criticize myself or say I hate myself. And it's almost like I thought I could hate myself into becoming somebody that I loved. And imagine my surprise when that didn't work. I didn't take into account the internal shifts that needed to take place and the amount of forgiveness that I had to give myself before I could ever get started loving myself. I've always identified with the phoenix in the way that I lived previously. When something major in my life wasn't working, I would burn the entire thing down and attempt a new beginning with only one goal this time, was to be better than last time. I guess I thought that if I was better, then I would be worthy of love, and then self love would follow. I obviously learned that that's not a sustainable way of living, or I wouldn't be sitting here today. Because of this way of living, I had a bunch past iterations of self that just got abandoned and left behind because they did something that led to that burning down of that identity. And while I did stand up each time stronger than I did previously, there were still pieces of me that never got reconciled. They were just left to feel rejected. I realized that those pieces needed just as much or even more attention than the good pieces that I had used to build the new identity. I thought that if I just stripped myself of the undesirables, then what was left would be a lovable person. But it just left me as an incomplete, unstable structure that would eventually have to burn down because you can't live as a human without good and bad, yin and yang. And as I began this healing journey that I mentioned in the previous video, I took a few steps that made a huge difference in opening up some space so that self love could occur. The first thing that I did to commit to a better life was changing my approach. Typically, I would find something that I didn't like about myself or something that people didn't react positively to, and I would attempt to change it by criticizing myself for having it, neglecting it, ignoring it, or just pushing it away. That's what I mean when I said I was hating myself into somebody that I could love. The self-talk and criticism was negative, harsh, non-compassionate, and sometimes even cruel to myself. And actually, it was Stream Chat that began pointing out my negative self talk, and that's why I became hyper aware of it. I used to self deprecate and say that I hated myself for jest, and they stopped allowing it to the point that it is no longer in my vocabulary. The second step that I took was replacing my language. Instead of beating myself up when I would fuck up and accidentally say I hated myself, and instead of ignoring the instinct to self deprecate or the instinct to say that I hated myself, in an attempt to not do it anymore, I replaced the language with ironic positivity. Maybe ironic isn't the right word for this example, but when I got the urge to say I hate myself, like as a joke even, I would replace it with I love myself, but I would say it sarcastically. Or ironically to the moment. When I would trip or run into things, instead of beating myself up for not being able to walk like a normal human, I would say things like, I am the epitome of grace and beauty. It doesn't really seem like much, but on a subconscious level, everything began shifting. My self perception began to improve, and even the way that I physically saw myself with my eyes changed into a more positive light. Cat's gonna cat, dog's gonna dog. The next step that I took was to become more emotionally aware. I was always in a constant state of fight or flight, so everything that went wrong felt like the beginning of the end, if you know what I mean. And my friend Yoni taught me that nothing is ever as bad as emotions make it feel. I was incredibly resistant to that at first, and I didn't want to believe him. Like, he doesn't know how earth shattering things are for me. But still, I put my trust in him as someone I really look up to, and I started practicing believing it by saying the phrase to myself every time that life flared up or I got triggered by something. And wouldn't you know, he was fucking right. Hate it when Yoni's right. Just kidding. Things started to be less and less painful each time I got emotional, and eventually things stopped feeling like the end of my world. This, over time, developed into an ability to just let emotions pass before I react to anything that put me in a triggered state, if I reacted at all. I learned that nothing is the end of the world, except maybe the end of the world. So when I found myself knocked on my ass again and feeling alone, I took these tools that I had developed and chose a way I had never traveled before. I went back. The next step that I took was self forgiveness. I was never one to look back on mistakes that I made. I pushed them away and just told myself I would never be like that again. I plowed forward through life, never stopping to reflect because it was just all too painful. Staying true to that commitment to myself of taking a different approach, I finally just stopped. I looked around me and behind me and faced all this self carnage and past iterations of me that were left abandoned and scared. I asked myself, would you do this to somebody that you love? Of course not. The time had come to go back and pick each past version of me up and bring them along. It was easier for my brain and the way that my memories exist in chunks between blackness to look at each version of me separately. I went to each of them one by one and began repairing whatever was abandoned there. I gave each of them the compassion, validation, forgiveness, and even an apology for leaving them behind. They just wanted to be saved, and I finally came and saved them from their pain. That part was extremely hard and was months on months of writing and processing and writing and processing and finally saying all the things to myself that I had always needed to hear by writing them out to myself. I became the parents that I didn't have, and I took responsibility for hearing out each one of their emotions. In the writing, you can see where each time the present me comes out and said what was needed to be said in these moments and gave the compassion that was necessary. That practice by itself led to so many breakthroughs and gave me so much healing. For the first time in my life, I didn't want to accept a pile of shit and delude myself into thinking that it was gold. I wanted better for myself, not out of a place of revenge or anger or even fear and scarcity. I wanted better because I now knew that I deserved better. I had deserved better all along. The next step I took was putting all that healing and processing into action. I asked myself, what does it look like when I love somebody? How do I behave? How do I treat them? And I wrote down everything I could think of, from the smallest task to the biggest emotional moments. And I started doing it all for myself. I started setting out my morning things, so making my tea goes smoother because it's my favorite part of the day. And I made myself a cute little tea station because it feels good to exist where things look nice. In the big emotional moments or when I'm reacting to something out of character for myself, I give myself the compassion and allow space from the thing that triggered me. I attend to my emotions so I don't feel the need to react strongly, if at all. Attending to myself in the moment, especially when I'm not at my best, keeps it so I don't have to make any trips to the past to pick myself up again. She's been with me all along. The final step I'm going to discuss for this specific topic, because there's so much more that I learned and there's so many other steps I took, but those are for another time. But the next step I took was to build a relationship with future me. And there's not just one future me. There's tomorrow's future me. There's 5 years from now future me. There's 10 years from now future me. I'm somebody who is typically motivated by prioritizing others. I struggle to do things just for the sake of myself. If it's for someone I consider family, done. My cat needs something, done. But when it comes to myself, it seems less important. So, by developing a relationship with these future versions of myself, I can care for me by caring for them. I consider future me in every decision that I make, every action that I take, and every goal that I set. I do all things for future me. I'm tackling hardship now so that she can live more comfortably and safely. I don't allow poor treatment so that she won't have to feel the negative effects of bad connections or toxic people. I let go of things that I was desperately clinging to because I know that it does harm to her. I'm working on my health and wellness so that she can have a good time and feel good. I'm learning languages so that she can travel and communicate with new people. I'm picking up skills so that she can network and connect in business opportunities. I love future me so much now, and I have become so attached to her that I won't entertain anything that could change or ruin the relationship that I have with her. Because I've learned to love and forgive past me, and because I've learned to love and have compassion for future me, I've grown to love and accept present me. I don't spend my time pouring into those who won't pour into me. I spend all of my time thinking about caring for myself, learning for myself, nourishing myself, and improving my life for myself. When I said in the last episode that Liv Phoenix is my final form, I didn't mean that I've stopped learning or growing and that I've reached my peak or anything like that. It means that I have learned to accept myself as a whole, and all mistakes and imperfections that I may face in the future will be handled with love and compassion. I no longer want to abandon parts of me. I'm done running from me. I am aware that there are many mountains that I still have to climb, but I will no longer give in to fear when it comes to what's best for me. I hope all of that made as much sense as it does in my head, and I hope you can take away something from it. If you made it to the end and found it entertaining or helpful, please leave a like and subscribe for more. If I get enough people who just want these videos, I'll move them to their own channel, but for now, I'm just acting. You know, it's true because I've written and now posted 2 episodes without thinking or doing anything with branding. I am a chronic overplanner and underdoer, and I'm doing. So things are different now, and I've gotten a lot better, which is why I can sit here today and tell you all butts.